Ladies and gentlemen, mark this date down, circle it. Burn it into your memory because what we just witnessed on the grass of the All England Club wasn't just a tennis match. It was a reckoning. It was a 21-year-old woman from Quezon City walking onto the most sacred ground in tennis with 2 years of pain strapped to her back and walking off it as the first chapter of a brand new history book for an entire nation of 115 million people. The scoreboard reads 6-3, 6-3. Clean, decisive, final. And if you weren't paying attention, if you scrolled past the highlights, you missed one of the most extraordinary stories tennis has produced in years. Because what Eala just accomplished on center court at Wimbledon isn't measured in games won or sets taken. It's measured in legacy. It's measured in the moment. A country that had never tasted Grand Slam success suddenly found itself with a seat at the grown-ups table. Let me set the scene for you because the context here is everything. The atmosphere inside that stadium was unlike anything Wimbledon had hosted in recent memory. 25,000 Filipino fans had booked flights. 25,000. They came from across the world. They filled the stands. They waved their flags. They chanted her name until the rafters of the All England Club shook. A nation watched from living rooms in Manila, from sari-sari stores in Cebu, from offices in Davao, and standing across the net with a racket in her hand and a target on her back was the ghost. The woman who 2 years earlier had reached into Eala's chest and ripped her heart out on a hard court in North Carolina. Renata Zarazua of Mexico. You have to understand what happened in August of 2024 to truly grasp the weight of this moment. The tournament was the Cary Tennis Classic, a modest ITF event, the kind of stop on the professional tour that doesn't make headlines, doesn't draw cameras, doesn't echo through history. Eala was 19 years old. She was ranked 147 in the world. She was still figuring out who she was on the professional circuit, still translating the promise of her junior career into the brutal arithmetic of the senior tour. And she was playing the best tennis of her young life. She came out swinging against Zarazua. She took the first set 6-3. She had the momentum. She had the lead. She had her foot on the Mexican veteran's throat. The semifinal was right there, sitting on the table, waiting to be claimed. And then, in the cruelest way, tennis knows how to deliver a lesson. It all came apart. Zarazua, a 26-year-old who had been around long enough to know that panic is a luxury professionals can't afford, found another gear. She took the second set 6-4. She took the third set 6-3. In just over 2 hours, she walked off that court with the victory, and Eala walked off it with a wound that would not close. That defeat did not just sting. It rewired her. Because here's the thing about losses like that. The ones where you had the win and let it slip, they either break you or they build you. And Eala went back to the Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca with that match playing on a loop inside her head. She trained harder. She studied film. She picked apart Zarazua's game, looking for the seams, the cracks, the openings she had failed to exploit the first time around. She turned that humiliation into fuel, and over the next 2 years, she lit it on fire. She climbed. She climbed in a way Filipino tennis had never seen before. Junior Grand Slam titles, her first WTA 125 crown. And then in Berlin earlier this year, she did something that made the entire tennis world sit up straight. She beat world number 2 Elena Rybakina. Then she beat world number 8 Alina Svitolina, a girl from the Philippines ranked outside the top 30, dismantling 2 of the most accomplished players on the planet on grass. That wasn't a flash. That wasn't a fluke. That was a statement. And then came the news that changed everything. June 22nd, 2026, the WTA rankings dropped. Eala had jumped 5 spots from 35 to 30 in the world. And then Canadian Victoria Mboko withdrew from Wimbledon with a knee injury, which pushed Eala up 1 more rung in the provisional draw. Number 29 seed, read those words again, number 29 seed at Wimbledon. The first Filipino in the entire Open era to earn a singles seed at a Grand Slam. Not a wild card, not a qualifier sneaking through the back door, a seeded player. Only the top 32 in the world get that designation at Wimbledon, and Eala, the kid from Quezon City, had earned her place among the elite. The Philippines did not just celebrate this news. The Philippines erupted. The headlines were everywhere. Social media became one long, sustained roar. People who had never watched a tennis point in their lives were suddenly memorizing serve speeds and forehand grips. A 21-year-old had become a national event. And then the draw was released on Friday, June 26th. The tennis world held its breath as the names came out of the pot. And when Alex Eala's first round opponent was announced, every single person who knew the backstory felt the air leave the room. Renata Zarazua, world number 76, Mexico, the exact same woman who had broken her 2 years earlier in Cary, North Carolina. Of all the players on the draw sheet, of all the possible opponents in a field stacked with talent, the tennis gods handed her the one person she most needed to face. But the script had one more twist tucked inside it, because Alex Eala and Renata Zarazua weren't strangers who had met once on a hard court in North Carolina. They were former doubles partners. They had shared a court as teammates. They had celebrated wins together. They had strategized together. They knew each other's games at a level most opponents never reach. The intimacy of that history made the matchup something more than a tennis match. It made it personal. It made it complicated. It made it the kind of story you couldn't have written if you tried. So when June 29th, 2026 arrived, when Alex Eala walked through that tunnel and onto center court at Wimbledon as the number 29 seed, the weight of all of it was on her shoulders. 2 years of preparation, a nation watching, a former partner across the net, a potential second-round showdown with Serena Williams waiting on the other side. Serena, who had come out of retirement on a wild card, 23 Grand Slam titles, the greatest of all time, or possibly Maya Joint, the Australian who had broken Eala's heart at the 2025 Eastbourne Open final and denied her a first WTA Tour title. The opening exchanges of the match were cautious. Both players were measuring each other, throwing out feelers, looking for the rhythm. Both held serve early. The crowd was electric but tense, every point absorbed like a punch. Eala had played herself ragged through the grass court swing. 4 events in a single month. She had been pushed to physical and mental limits in Bad Homburg. She came into this match having won 9 of her 12 grass court matches, but the fatigue was real. And then the moment came, the pivot point, the instant where the entire match tilted. Eala earned a break point. The stadium fell silent in that strange Wimbledon way where 15,000 people somehow make less sound than a single dropped pin. She unleashed a forehand, a blistering, flat, screaming winner that landed inside the line and left Zarazua frozen. The crowd detonated. The Filipino contingent went berserk. And from that point forward, Alex Eala was a different player. She was unleashed. She was free. She closed out the first set 6-3. She took control of the second and never gave it back. The final point was an ace, a crushing serve down the tee that Zarazua could only watch fly past. And then Alex Eala dropped to her knees on the grass of center court, and 2 years of waiting, 2 years of training, 2 years of carrying every Filipino tennis dream on her back came pouring out in a single moment of release. Now let's talk about what this actually means, because I want to make sure we're not just getting swept up in the emotion. We need to put this in the proper context. In 5 Grand Slam main draw appearances over the past 2 years, Alex Eala had only advanced beyond the opening round one time. She had been knocking on the door but couldn't get it open. And on the biggest stage against the most loaded opponent in terms of psychological weight she could have possibly drawn, she kicked the door down. This victory pushes her closer to a career high ranking of world number 26. The prize money is significant, but the prize money is the smallest part of this story. What Alex Eala just did is plant a flag. She just told every Filipino kid picking up a racket for the first time that the ceiling they thought existed doesn't actually exist, that a girl from Quezon City can stand on center court at Wimbledon as a seeded player and beat a veteran professional in straight sets. That dream is no longer abstract. It has a face, it has a name, it has a forehand. And here's where the story gets even more interesting, because the next match is not going to be easy. If she draws Serena Williams in the second round, she is facing the most decorated player in the history of women's tennis, a player who has won Wimbledon 7 times, a player whose mere presence on a court has historically been enough to break opponents before the first serve. If she draws Maya Joint, she's facing a player who has already beaten her in a final, a player who knows exactly how to take points away from her in tight moments. Either path is a mountain. But here's the thing about Alex Eala that the rest of the tennis world is just starting to learn. She doesn't seem to mind mountains. She beat Rybakina, she beat Svitolina, she beat multiple Grand Slam champions on grass this season. She has spent the last 2 years preparing not to be overwhelmed by big moments, but to consume them. The bigger the stage, the more comfortable she appears to be, and there's a deeper layer to all of this that I think deserves attention. The symbolism of what Renata Zarazua represented in this story. Zarazua wasn't a villain. She wasn't a cartoon character. She was a professional who had once handed Eala a devastating defeat, and in doing so had inadvertently become the catalyst for everything that followed. That loss in Carrie was the unlock. It was the moment that forced Eala to become the player she is today. And the universe, with its sense of cinematic justice, brought Zarazua back into her path at the exact moment she was ready to close the loop. That's not just sports. That's storytelling at its highest level. The financial rewards from this victory matter, but the cultural impact is incalculable. The Philippines has produced champions in boxing. It has produced champions in basketball at the regional level. But tennis, with its country club roots and its European tradition, has historically been a sport where the Philippines was a footnote at best. Eala just rewrote that. She didn't just earn a seed. She didn't just win a first-round match. She gave 115 million people a reason to believe that the ceiling has been raised. And now the entire tennis world is watching. Because the question that hangs in the air right now is simple. Was this the peak? Was this the moment? Or was this just the beginning of something much bigger? Because if Eala can take what she just did against Zarazua, the emotional release, the technical execution, the mental fortitude, and carry it into a second-round match against either Serena Williams or Maya Joint, we are not just watching a feel-good story. We are watching the birth of a genuine contender. We are watching a player who could legitimately make a deep run at Wimbledon. We are watching a 21-year-old who just proved that the demons of her past have no power over her future. The grass court season has been brutal on her body. The schedule has been punishing. The pressure of being the first Filipino seed in open-era history is the kind of weight that has crushed players with far more experience. But Eala didn't just survive it. She used it. She channeled it into one of the most cathartic, complete, decisive performances of her young career. So the question I'll leave you with is this. When the history books are written, when someone tells the story of how Philippine tennis arrived on the global stage, will this be remembered as the night Eala finally exorcised the ghost of Carrie? Or will it be remembered as the night she announced that the ghost was never the point at all? The real story was about a young woman who turned the worst moment of her professional life into the launching pad for everything that came after. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Was this just round one of a Cinderella story, or are we watching the start of a long, sustained climb to the very top of the sport? Either way, one thing is now beyond debate. Eala belongs. She has the seed, she has the win, she has the country behind her, and the only question left is how far she's willing to go.